In 1969, Norway was a relatively poor Scandinavian country. Fishing, shipping, some manufacturing, nothing special. They found oil in the North Sea. Today, Norway has a sovereign wealth fund worth over $1.4 trillion. Every Norwegian is essentially a millionaire on paper. Free education, healthcare, infrastructure that works. Oil made Norway one of the wealthiest nations on earth. Now here's the question. Could Namibia pull off the same transformation? Because in 2022, they found something massive off their coast. The Venus oil discovery. TotalEnergies just took full control in December 2025, and the reserves could rival anything in sub-Saharan Africa. But here's what keeps me worried. Finding oil and managing oil wealth are completely two different skills. Norway got it right. Nigeria found even more oil, but still has widespread poverty. Which path will Namibia take? Let me set the scene. Namibia's Orange Basin, offshore in the Atlantic. For years, exploration companies looked at this area, but nobody committed serious money. Too risky, too unproven. 2022 changes everything. TotalEnergies and Qatar Energy drill Venus 1. They hit oil, not just a little, potentially billions of barrels. Then they find Mopane nearby, another major discovery. Now fast forward to December 9th, 2025, TotalEnergies makes a strategic move. They swap assets with a company called Galp and take complete operatorship of both Venus and Mopane. Their official statement says, this transaction demonstrates strong confidence towards Namibia as a future oil-producing country. That literally means they are all in. So final investment decisions are expected in 2026. When that happens, billions in infrastructure spending gets committed. Pipelines, processing facilities, export terminals, housing for workers, the whole ecosystem. The geological estimates suggest this could be the largest oil discovery in sub-Saharan African history. For context, Namibia's entire GDP right now is about $12 billion annually. If Venus produces what oil experts think it could, oil revenues could multiply that several times over. That's Norway-level transformation potential. Here's why the Norway comparison matters. Norway didn't just extract oil and hope for the best. They made 3 critical decisions that most oil-producing countries never make. They created a sovereign wealth fund immediately. Oil revenues didn't go into the general budget to be spent on whatever. They went into a fund invested globally. Only the returns get spent, never the principal. Now, the second thing they did is they maintained state control. The Norwegian government owned Star Oil and kept majority stakes. The Star Oil now known as Equinor. So foreign companies could operate, but Norway controls strategic decisions. Now, the third smart move they took is they invested in human capital. Norwegian engineers, Norwegian workers, Norwegian companies got prioritized. Technology transfer was required and not optional. Now compare that to Nigeria. Massive oil reserves since the 1960s, but revenues got funneled through corruption. No sovereign wealth fund, and most of the expertise and profits stayed with foreign companies. Result, Nigeria is one of the biggest oil producers in Africa, but still struggles with poverty and infrastructure. Namibia's government is explicitly studying Norway's model. They've said publicly they want a sovereign wealth fund. The question is whether they have the political will and the institutional capacity to actually institute it. Because Namibia's population is currently only 2.5 million people. If they get the Norway formula well, the per capita wealth could be extraordinary. And if they get it wrong, Venus becomes just another extraction story where foreign companies profit and locals see minimal benefits. Now, Namibia's not happening in isolation. There are actually 14 major oil and gas projects advancing across Africa right now. and they are all connected to the same energy transformation. To begin with, we've got Angola's deep water push, Azule Energy. That's BP and Eni working together, planning multiple wells in Congo and Kwanza basins. Angola has been a major producer for decades, but fields are aging. These new wells extend their dominance. Second, we've got Nigeria's approvals. Shell and others finally got regulatory green lights for expansions. Nigeria has had so many bureaucratic and security delays, but approvals mean productions could ramp up. Next, we have Mozambique's NLG restart. Production actually shut down because of insurgencies in Cabo Delgado province. Too dangerous to operate, but security improved enough that ExxonMobil lifted force majeure in 2024. When Mozambique hits full capacity, that's 30 billion cubic meters of gas annually. Next on, we've got Senegal's Sangomar, already producing. First oil came in June 2024 through Woodside. Senegal's projecting 7.9% GDP growth, majorly from oil revenues. That's real economic acceleration. Across all 14 projects, we are looking at over $35 billion in investment by 2026. The International Energy Agency predicts Africa could replace 20% of Russian gas to Europe by 2030. So Namibia's Venus discovery sits within this larger continental shift. Africa's moving from sporadic oil finds to sustained energy production. The question for each country is the same: who controls it and who benefits? Here's the uncomfortable truth that doesn't get talked about enough. Africa's oil sector remains dominated by international companies. TotalEnergies, Eni, Shell, ExxonMobil, BP, they control most upstream projects and market share. That's just the reality according to 2025 market analysis. National oil companies like Nigeria's NNPC, Algeria's Sonatrach, Angola's Sonangol, they hold stakes, but they usually partner with international giants because of technology gaps and funding shortages. They don't have full control. For Namibia especially, TotalEnergies is the operator. They are making the main decisions, and Namibia only benefits through taxes, royalties, and hopefully employment, while the technical expertise and profit centers remain foreign. As for Nigeria, they updated their oil and gas law in 2021. It mandates 70% local goods and services in projects. Companies that don't comply lose contracts. Nigerian firms like Seplat and Aito have grown to handle 15 to 20% upstream activity. 10 years ago, that was almost zero. Angola passed a decree in 2022 requiring 40% local participation in new blocks. Sonangol, their national oil company, is targeting an IPO to raise capital while maintaining control. These local content laws matter because they force international companies to use local suppliers, hire local workers, train local engineers. It's not charity, it's policy with teeth. Namibia's Venus project, for instance, includes local training requirements. TotalEnergies has to build Namibia's capacity as part of the deal. Now the question is whether Namibia enforces those requirements rigorously or lets them slide. Energy analysts predict that African national oil companies could control 30 to 40% market share by 2030 if capacity building continues. That would be a massive shift from the current situation. So what would it take for Namibia to actually become the next Norway? Let me break down the specific steps. The first step is to create the Sovereign Wealth Fund immediately. Norway set up their fund in 1990, but the legal framework came earlier. Namibia needs to establish the fund structure before significant oil revenues start flowing. Once money hits government account without a fund in place, particular pressure to spend it becomes overwhelming. The fund needs ironclad rules. All oil revenues go in. Only investment returns get spent on budget. Independent management, transparent reporting, No exceptions for emergencies or political promises. Now, the second step is to maintain strategic control. Namibia doesn't have the capital or technology to develop venues alone. Fine, but the partnership terms matter enormously. Norway lets foreign companies operate, but Star Oil, the state company, maintained significant ownership and learned the technology. Joint ventures where Namibian entity gain equity and expertise, and not just service contracts. Now, the third step would obviously be an aggressive local content enforcement. Namibia is requiring local training programs. That's a start, but Norway went further. Norwegian suppliers, Norwegian workers wherever possible. Mandatory technology transfer. Namibia should copy Angola's 40% local participation requirement and Nigeria's 70% local goods mandate. Make it contractual. Audit it and penalize violations. Now, step 4 would obviously be to invest in education and infrastructure. Norway invested revenue into education, creating engineers and geologists who could eventually run everything themselves. Namibia's population is small, 2.5 million, which generally makes targeted education easier. They need petroleum engineering programs, violation training for rig workers, business development for local suppliers. Start now before production begins. Now, step 5, which is the last but not the least, is obviously regional integration. Here's where Namibia could do something Norway didn't. Use oil wealth to drive continental integration. The African Continental Free Trade Area creates opportunities for Namibia to power regional industrialization. Gas to power projects, refineries that serve neighboring countries, using energy wealth to build manufacturing capacity across Southern Africa. So quickly before we go to the risk, it might interest you to know that we have a diaper project going on that is an African-made diaper from scratch. So if that's something that catches your interest and you would love to invest in it, all you can do is email us at africatodayinfo@gmail.com and we are going to be taking it from there. Let me be honest about the challenges because finding oil is the easy part. To begin with, we have the political risk. Namibia has been stable since independence, but oil wealth tests every political system. Corruption, elite capture, patronage spending, this destroys oil companies. Norway had strong institutions before finding oil. Namibia's institutions are good by African standards, but oil money will stress test them. Another challenge is going to be the Dutch disease. When oil revenues flowed in, the currency appreciates, making other exports uncompetitive. Manufacturing and agriculture collapse. The economy becomes dependent on a single commodity. Norway managed this through their wealth fund. Namibia needs similar discipline. Another problem or challenge is going to be technology dependence. Even with training programs, Namibia won't have deep power drilling expertise for decades. They will depend on TotalEnergies and other international companies for the foreseeable future. That limits negotiating power. The world's moving towards renewables. Oil and gas projects today need 20 to 30 years to pay back investment. What if global demand drops faster than expected? Namibia could end up with stranded assets. Europe's carbon border adjustment mechanism, basically a carbon tax on imports, could reduce African GDP by almost 1%, according to some studies. If you are building an oil economy while your biggest potential customer is penalizing carbon, that's a structural problem. Now, the fifth risk, which is not the least, the Nigerian scenario. The worst case is Namibia finds massive oil. Production ramps up, revenues flow, but weak institutions mean the money gets stolen or wasted. Decades pass and ordinary Namibians see minimal benefits. That has happened repeatedly in Africa. So here's the bottom line. Namibia's venues discovery is potentially transformation, but potential isn't destiny. Norway found oil and built one of the wealthiest societies on earth. Nigeria found more wealth but still struggles with poverty. The difference wasn't geology, it was governance, institutions, and policy choices. Now, Namibia has advantages Nigeria didn't. They are starting with better institutions. They have Norway's example to learn from. They have a small population, which makes per capita wealth easier to achieve. And they are operating in an era where local content laws and African economic integration creates opportunities that didn't exist in the 1970s. The 14 projects happening across Africa, that is the Mozambique's LNG, Angola's deep water wells, Senegal's production, they all face the same fundamental question: who controls the wealth and who benefits? So by 2026, when final investment decisions get made, we will know if Namibia is serious about the Norway model. Watch whether they establish the sovereign wealth fund before oil wealth flows. Watch whether local content requirements get enforced or waived. Watch whether Namibian companies get real equity or just service contracts. If Namibia gets this right, it doesn't just transform their country. It proves a model for the rest of Africa. It shows that resource wealth can actually build prosperity instead of just enriching foreign companies and local elites. That's the promise of venues. The question is whether Namibia has the political will to make it real. If you want to follow whether Namibia actually follows the Norway model or repeats past mistake, subscribe and I will make sure that I follow on with the 2026 decision for the final investment, the Sovereign Wealth Fund legislation and local content enforcement. Drop a comment and let me know what you think will get us. Do you think Namibia can actually pull up with this? I would love to know your thoughts. Or is it a biggest risk they are taking? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Africa is sitting on massive energy wealth. The real question we should be asking now is whether that wealth builds nations or enriches just a few companies. And Namibia right now is about to show us which path they choose. That said, thanks for watching this video and hope to see you on my next one as always.